Welcome. Thank you for coming. Like and subscribe for more stories. Warning, these stories may be graphic. Serious, former convicts of Reddit, what did happen to pedophiles in prison? Federal prison. Edit, guys, please slow down with the hateful PMs. My accounts may be anecdotal at best. This is from one specific maximum security federal prison. There are so many different types of jails and prisons with varying levels of security and huge variables in population type. Obviously, what I experienced doesn't mean that every single other jail and prison is like this. When you first get there, your counselor will ask you if there's any reason that you can't walk the yard or be in general population. This is usually where you make the decision to do your time in the SHU all alone, or take your chances out with everyone else. You do need to have a good reason though: child molester, gang issues, there's a hit on you from the last place you stayed, you're a snitch, etc. When you get settled in, the shot caller from your race will approach you. You're told something like this: you have 1 week to get us your paperwork so we can make sure you're not a trauma or have no Rule 35s. If you don't provide this in a week, we'll kill you. Here's a toothbrush, some snacks, some soap. Let me know if you need anything. Chamo equals child molester. Rule 35 equals reduced sentence for snitching on someone. So, you show them your paperwork, and if you're clean you're good to go. If you don't show paperwork, or you're not clean, you will be killed within the next week. For some reason, new guys do not take this seriously. They either don't produce their paperwork, or they actually produce it knowing that there's less than desirable stuff on there. What happens to them? Stabbed 27 times all in a matter of seconds. Face/head stomped on so hard until it just cracks open and gunk leaks out. Mouth/jaw shattered with a pool stick or pool ball. 2 guys killed in about 60 seconds by a tiny Mexican holding just a bocce ball. Native Americans pretend like it's all good. 10 of them go into the sweat lodge for religious reasons. Only 9 come out. 10th guy had a clean gash in his head from a shovel. Cellmate hung the guy with a bedsheet to make it look like suicide. Why do these guys take chances with trying to be in general population? Because the SHU sucks. You're by yourself. No TV. 3 showers a week. No access to things like the prison barber. Limited access to phones. Video visitations. Constant video monitoring to prevent suicide. And every 18 months they ship you to a new prison. If you're looking at 40 years for child rape, that can be a long time to live in those conditions. Sometimes guys will stay in general population knowing that they will get killed simply because they don't want to be there but can't commit suicide in the SHU. I was just in a high security felony wing of jail waiting for extradition to another state, not in prison at the time. Well, the few that came in were told to go to SEG or get their effing heads busted every day till they did. The one dude came in and refused to leave, was yelled at, spit on, and threatened until everyone had enough. 3 dudes ran up in his cell and threw him the most vicious beating you can imagine. I remember him crawling out of his cell and the dude pulling him back in for more. I could hear the bones breaking from 20 feet away. He died on the way to the hospital. All the guys that took part were there on murder beefs anyway, so the extra 5 years they got was worth it to them. This was an extreme case as the jail was overpopulated and they tried to sneak the chamos in Gen Pop because SEG was full. Everywhere else I was incarcerated they keep the touchers far away from us. I was in jail last year for drug charges. They put a convicted groper into our unit because the regular sexual charge unit was full or some shit. Anyways, I paid someone 2 soups to grope him. We were all watching TV when I hear my nig call my name behind me. He was standing right behind the groper, and reached around him and squeezed the shit out of his fat tits. This dude jumped out of his seat and everyone laughed. Best soups I ever spent. Edit, grammar and missed words. I was in HDSP for some time due to a drug crime. I ran with the Pesa car, Hispanic non-gang related, cartel members. Okay, upon entering while in the fish tank 30 days in your cell with a cellie, you see a caseworker who asks you if you want to hit GP, general population, or protective custody. Here you can choose. If you're stupid, molested a child and select GP, the moment your stay in the fish tank is over you are moved to the level 3 yard. Once in level 3 your cellie will ask you your PSI, pre-sentence investigation report. This will have your crime and if you talk to the cops etc. This paperwork will be handed over to the key holder, the leader of the car. If you're clean, no issue. If your paperwork is dirty for molesting a child etc., they will tell you it's okay, we all make mistakes etc. In the background we are planning to take you out. For us it was either pay the Southsiders to clean our mess or we can keep it within the Pesa car. HDSP is in the desert and the yard is covered in rocks. We would wait until chow time, dinner during winter, breakfast during summer. When we had cover of darkness walking to the chow hall we would have pre-planted a special rock. Nearing said rock, the line would lose its form and the selected person picks up said rock and slams it against the person's head as hard as possible. Normally person would drop, bleed, and we continue as nothing happened, throwing away used rock. If he person would not drop back, 1 and 2 would either start beating up the person, really depends on how bad they messed up. If it was a true F up, a shank would be used. In 2 years only saw this happen 2 times, none by the pie sauce but by the Southsiders. Spent 10 months in the Texas prison system for manslaughter. FYI, first offense and it was an accident, which is why it was a short sentence. They were typically berated and yelled at pretty badly. Most of them that stuck around the Gen Pop dorms were honest and just pervs. She was 16, he was 22. That kind of shit. We had one guy, raped both his daughters from 4 on up. Finally his then 14-year/0 hid her cell phone and recorded it happening to her younger sister. Spoiler, this is graphic. One night I woke up to pee and my neighbor, bed at my feet, we were in rows, pulled me back down, told me not to go to the bathroom. I'm new to this and don't know any better and brushed it off. Anyways, 3 guys had the Chester pinned down raping him. At this point all I really saw was blood or shit and then his face. It looked like a sock wrapped around a broomstick shoved sideways in his mouth to keep him quiet. The scary part was the sound. There were 56 men in the storm. There wasn't enough sound to wake up hardly anyone. All this lasted maybe 1 second and I went back to bed. I didn't sleep that night or the next at all. That man spent the rest of the time I had there with his head down or swinging wildly at anyone who even looked at him wrong. The worst part is most everyone acted like it was normal and I didn't do a damn thing about it. I went with the flow. I lived in the same large, gymnasium-sized, room for 5 months with him and could never look at him knowing I didn't help. Prison is hell. People act like it's what they deserve. If our government's elects spent 1 week in a prison we would see reform so fast. I only made it because I was smart. A few well-respected people basically said this guy's not coming back, don't F with him, and I would build a tattoo gun or radio, steal from work. Guards never looked twice at me. I still got stabbed, got beaten and had to hurt a few people. For anyone wondering, I crashed going 14 miles per hour over the limit, 74 in a 60. My best friend didn't have a seatbelt on and flew out when we flipped. I doubt I'll ever be normal and can hardly live with myself some days. I admitted to the EMT to drinking 4 hours prior to the crash. I thought my legs were broken and wanted to be honest before I got pumped full of meds, and even though I knew I was okay to drive and the blood work came back negative, a cop had me saying it on video and I got charged with manslaughter. Apparently screaming sorry at the top of my lungs at my dead friend's body looked bad too, according to my lawyer, and made me look guilty. I signed a plea. Edit. Why do I feel bad for not help a child molester? 2 rights don't make a wrong, and if you saw what I saw you wouldn't wish it on anyone. Wouldn't help the girls he hurt anyways. They check into PC or they get the business. Most Chesters I encountered in jails and prisons were older, white guys. There were a few there for sexual relations with girls who were 15 when they were 18, and they are generally left alone as it is a situation many people might find themselves in as an 18-year-old kid. Older dudes do not get that leeway though. They are beaten, extorted, robbed, raped themselves, or killed by the alpha inmates. They really didn't like to kill the guys at the camp I was on, as they are, like I said, older white guys. They typically have money on their books and go to commissary every week. They are an endless source of hygiene products and snacks. I've seen a line of inmates outside of a Chester's cell door with a list of items they each want him to order. For his sake, he better hope he's got the money on his books to satisfy all their wants. If he doesn't, it never ended well for him. At a county jail I was in Northern Virginia 1997, they would bring food carts up to each block with the appropriate number of trays/drinks for each inmate to receive 1 meal. It wasn't exclusive to Chester's, but if you saw a guy grab 2 trays back to back through the food slot, you knew someone either A, wasn't going to eat because of their crime, or B, they were put on a diet because whoever grabbed 2 trays thought that person was a girl. Normally though, they would announce to the rest of the block whose tray they were taking to alleviate any potential confusion in case one of their boys was the guy going without. Funny part is, most people didn't even eat the food. They waited until everyone had access to their boxes. We were locked out of our cells in the dairy room every morning at 7:30, and made burritos, ramen, chips, meat, cheese, etc. for dinner. COs know what's going on. They don't really seem to care though. I guess overall they get it the worst. A lot of guys are there to do their time and go home, or do their time as drama-free as possible. All bets are off though when it comes to Chester's. I kind of felt bad for them, tbh. What makes him so much worse than me? Sure, I didn't molest kids, but what makes their crimes of murder, armed robbery and rape any less life-changing or traumatic for their victims? I did see a Chester beat the absolute dog shit out of two guys in his cell one night though. That was pretty rad. Dude was like 26, girl lied and said she was 19, 15, and he got some time. He ended up throwing one of them off the tier onto a table in the day room. I never root for sex offenders per se, but that was effing awesome. Here in Canada, they are given their own, well, prison basically. They are not put in with the regular people. I did 6 months in CFCF, didn't even make it to Gen Pop before two big-ass mother effers from the same street found out that some Asian dude was in for touching his niece. This guy, my god, they approached him at lunch and snatched away his tray first. The bigger of the two slapped him so effing hard it almost hurt me while screaming, "So you like to hurt little girls?" Followed up by the man who took the tray hitting this little Asian guy with a straight-up sucker punch that laid him out flat. After that I'm pretty sure every inmate on C block stopped his head. COs had pepper spray flying everywhere, and when all was said and done the pedo was taken to the hospital and the rest of us didn't get dinner because we were locked down for 24 hours. That was only quarantine. The whole thing could have been avoided if there wasn't a giant whiteboard with everyone's name, inmate number, and charges written all over it. My bunkie used to throw D-sized batteries at M. I was a holdover once and was only locked up for 25 out the 30 days I was given. Since I wasn't threat, I was moved after the first day to a more suitable pod. I remember they didn't let them watch TV or join any activity. The majority of inmates in the pod I was in had served most of their time and were getting out soon or being transferred back to Canada, or Native American guys that got locked up on the reservation. Late to the party, but I can shed some, honest, light on this. 2 things to explain what happens. 1. Generally they are kept out of Gen Pop if at all possible. They are usually put in a seg unit with other sex offenders or a minimum security area. 2. We are generally under very strict orders not to reveal what a person is convicted of, especially if it is a sex-related crime. I'm not saying some COs don't let it slip, but it's rare. If an offender wants to tell the other inmates, that is their choice, but sex offenders generally keep their crimes to themselves. It is in fact a HIPAA violation to discuss the crimes of inmates with anyone other than law enforcement personnel or court personnel, and you can be brought up on charges for it and be terminated, sued, or wind up serving time yourself. A side note, as a CO, if there is an inmate confrontation or a beatdown, any kind of violence, it creates a lot of extra work for us. Paperwork, lockdowns, interviews, etc. We are overworked enough, 12-hour shifts 4 to 6 days in a row, and don't tend to cause conflicts that would force us to work even more. Ex of mine went to prison in Brazil, said an offender came in after he was processed. Both the inmates and the guards dressed him in a dress, wig, put lipstick on him, put out cigarettes on him, and beat the crap out of him. Didn't know if he made it or not. There's no way we'll know which of these stories are true, exaggerated, hearsay, or completely false, but goddamn, this topic is still terrifying as hell. Subscribe and turn on the notification bell for more stories delivered to you. Thanks for listening. See you later.